Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a nice lunch break. My name is Michael Nash. I'm the Deputy Editor at Car Design News, and I'm really pleased to be kicking off our afternoon sessions with amazing design review from Fordzilla of the P1, a completely virtual car that has been designed for gaming. Before we get into it, please be sure to ping any comments or questions over into the chat box. We're really enjoying speaking to you guys, the audience, and connecting you to the expert designers that we're so lucky to have here today. So let's get into it. Let's take a look under the skin of the Fordzilla P1. We will have a Q&A session with the team shortly, but for now, sit back and enjoy the film.
In August 2019, we started Team Fordzilla from the ground up. As our team grew, so did our ambition. And we embarked on something never done before. A mission to create our own original virtual race car. We started with one of the most important questions for Ford. How do we design this car around the people who will then drive it? The answer? We asked them to design it with us. So we called on the Team Fordzilla Twitter community to help us design the ultimate in-game track machine. Ford designers pitched concepts for every element of the new virtual car. The seat, the wheels, the engine. Everything was voted for by the online community. We put Team Fordzilla members in head-to-head races, and the winners won the power to decide one piece of the final design.
The polls got over 250,000 votes, which, as I'm sure everyone will agree, is really, really positive, and the audience were really engaged throughout this. The process was longer than we anticipated, so we had to work quite hard to keep everyone still interested and to keep content flowing, and actually the audience still remained heavily engaged throughout that.
Each part of this car was chosen by the gamers who would race it. Our first virtual vehicle, not based on a real Ford model, but instead designed solely for the thrills of gaming. 8 designers exhibited their final designs in virtual reality, and Ford's European design director, Amko Leenarts, led Ford executives through each proposal in a truly global review. It was up to them to whittle it down.
There's 2 people in the interior, and they're both gaming, and they're both relating to each other.
To me, that is the next generation GT.
That's an extremely exciting idea.
In the end, 4 designs were chosen for the interior and exterior of P1. But there could only be one winning car. So, time to return to Twitter to ask the gamers.
Creating a car for in-game is not something really original. A lot of brands have done that. What we wanted was something different. We wanted to really engage and create something together.
After 25,000 final votes, the last collaborative decision was made. Our P1 was chosen and ready to meet the world. But we didn't stop there. A team in Turin have been building a physical model of the Team Fordzilla P1 car. The model was brought to Cologne, where Ford's design team was eagerly waiting. I went to Cologne to see the P1 arrive, and for the first time ever, designers and gamers got to see it in the flesh.
For this particular project, we were totally free. We were not limited to cost or feasibility. We could just design the perfect gamer's experience. I'm very excited today to see the P1 for real. It's the first day we're seeing it, and we always saw it just on the screen, and now it's the first time we see it in reality.
For me, the biggest challenge was definitely remote working. I think everyone in the world is probably experiencing something similar. but when you're actually building something physical and you don't really have a true idea of scale, it's much more difficult. However, luckily Ford is a global company, so we're very much used to sharing information and designing things across the globe. So we have all the digital tools to help us with that kind of project, but for sure the complete transition to remote working was a massive challenge for us.
To work on this project that is quite close to me as well is amazing. I used to be a gamer in my past, so to be able to work on something like this for me is incredible. It's something rather special and unique because, like I said, it's not just a first of Ford, but it's a first for the world, and that is something that not many people can say.
We, had the opportunity to translate a digital story into physical materials, and I think this was also a big challenge for us.
Because of this digital nature of this product, we were always looking to see how we can merge the both. So we always try to get materials that have layers, that have dimension, that change character, that are more fluid with each other. So that way we can really get the physical and the digital connected.
It's special to be part of a project like this. It's been a very small but very motivated team. We had meetings sometimes that would last for 8 hours straight. We would just continue to develop things until we thought they were good enough and they would fit the way we would want them to fit. The biggest achievement is the end result, pure and simple. To be part of this from the very beginning and see it evolve has been really an honor.
Ford are a human-centric design company, so we're always focusing on the customer. But in this project, we've taken it one step further and actually co-creating directly with the customer, which is gamers in this particular project. And that was really pushing the boundaries of human-centric design and connecting with customers in a much more deep and meaningful way. And I think that's the thing about Ford at the moment. We're really pushing the boundaries and stretching what is possible.
I mean, isn't it incredible? I think it's absolutely amazing. I think given the time, the fact that we have built this vehicle in 7 weeks, I think what we have achieved here is quite extraordinary.
Guys, it's even more beautiful than the sketches that we saw. It's a blast. I love it. I'm in love.
Yeah, the sketch was cool, but these, wow.
You have small pieces connecting the virtual world and the real world, and I really like it because I think that's a very cool idea to combine both worlds.
I think everyone, when see the car for first time, you only can have one thinking: I want to drive it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The future of P1 is both promising and really exciting. The car was designed first and foremost as an in-game vehicle. So our next task is to make sure that it drops in a game. We are in discussion with various game publishers. We have some hot leads, and we're very hopeful that in a few weeks we will be able to announce which game the car will be dropped in.
Now that I've seen the P1 for real, I can't wait to race it in a game. Keep an eye out for some big news as Team Fordzilla becomes the first esports team with their own in-game car. This is our P1. See you on the track.
The customer that we designed this car for is the gamer that is looking for an exciting Ford product that they can race in any type of championship. So what is interesting about Ford as a brand for the esports world is that in the car racing gaming industry, Ford is one of the most chosen brands. So it really made sense to co-create together with the gamers and create a car that they dream of driving. We had a great partner while working on this project within Ford. That was the communications teams. We used to work with engineering or marketing, our typical traditional customer. But for this, we needed really to work with a different partner that knew how to navigate into the social media, into the gaming esport world, and how to reach the customer. So that was a really new adventure for us too. One other aspect that was interesting of this process, it was entirely public. And when you compared it with our usual process where everything is a secret, this was new for us. So every step of the way was right out there, and had reactions on, something that we obviously not very used to in our normal working life. That was new, that was exciting, and it helped also to confirm every step of the way that we were on the right path. And with that, we really embraced the uncertainty of the design outcomes, and being able to adapt to it, that in the end resulted into this great product. So when the package done, the designers started to do their creativity and see how can we bring this to life and give it shape. We are used to having constraints and having package, so there was nothing new there. But how the package was created, and then how can you make this car so desirable that people in computer games are going to choose it, and have a real point of view, and have that done in a way that maybe wasn't possible in the real world, but only in the digital world. That's what was so exciting for the designers to work on, and with that they gave a really great bandwidth of different ideas. So we're here in the design studio showroom, and we are here with the car, and we are here with a couple of team members that have been part of this design process. So I'm really excited being here with these guys and being able to talk around the design. So welcome Juan, Netzad, and Adam. Maybe to start off is maybe a general question to you guys is like, why do you think this was a special thing to do?
You mean as a project? Well, it's taking part of something completely new. No? It's we are not used to these kind of projects here in a production studio. So when we as designers, when there is something new coming, I think you just go and take it and see what comes up from here.
So I remembered in your design, Juan, and you know, I called it maybe slightly brutal and unrespectful, kind of the SUV for the race track, because your design had quite a different approach. Yeah. Could you talk about that a bit?
Right. Well, I wanted to give like a very sculptural body to my design. And that's why it's coming. It's in the end it's looking a bit voluptuous. It's a bit SUV-ish. I really wanted. I think the most special thing of this project is that it's a virtual car. So what can you do in a virtual car? I mean, how much craziness in a real world of what something that would be crazy in a real world you could put into this virtual car, or how much reality you have to use in order to make a competent vehicle. And I think based on that, I thought something we could do is perhaps in my case is perhaps you could move the position of the cockpit and the cabin backwards and forward, and perhaps you can give different feelings to the driver.
I've got a question as well for Adam. You're one of the interior designers that has been working on this car. So obviously this environment that you're sitting in a computer game car, how did you think about that differently than when you would normally design a physical environment in a normal car?
Yeah, I mean, this project, it obviously let us step completely outside of what we normally do. And I remember near the beginning of the project, we were joking about new tools and things and how we could maybe even use Minecraft to design a vehicle, right? Like completely step outside of what we normally do. And that got me thinking about this aesthetic, this digital aesthetic, and what could be really digital, and what could be something we've never seen before. So it started this idea about building an environment completely out of modules, right? That could be transforming and could be forming this really different space around you. So that was my starting point, and in the end, it produced I think an aesthetic that was quite a nice bridge between the sort of gaming aesthetic and science fiction, a sort of space station feeling to it. Yeah. And it really contrasted this, maybe the performance with a certain softness that was interesting. And within the cabin, this softness and the kind of technical elements were a really nice juxtaposition.
So it was kind of like a gigantic fixation of what an interior normally is. Over to you, Nedzad. Your design was kind of out of space, and I think you even, even the color that you did from the beginning was kind of had this like as if the sun goes under on Mars, So it felt like really a car to another planet. I think that was kind of your way of really doing something different for this digital world. Can you talk us a little bit about what that concept exactly was?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. So what led to that is I was trying to marry two different worlds, right? So there was this world that was we're racing, gaming. So everyone has driven a go-kart, and now those people are in the virtual gaming community. So everyone feels familiar with that feel, and yet we want speed, low, wide. So to me, speed is immediately a fighter jet. So exactly in that direction, how do you marry a fighter jet and a go-kart? So to me, it was, you have this almost skateboard platform there in carbon fiber that includes all the technical bits, and you have this ruby-like structure that beautifully represents the Ford form and volumes. And you marry those two, and you get an object that looks out of space, and I hope to the most of the audience out there very desirable.
What I liked about it was this kind of pebble shape that you talked about with the kind of tail coming out of it. Also made it not only a bit like coming from the 70s, because of the kind of squareness in the front and the kind of canopy, kind of inspiration got a little bit of inspiration from the past, but it was really out there in the future. But at the same time, it had something organic as well. Like it felt natural, the way that it was sitting on the platform. So I really appreciated that. So maybe going back to Adam, there were a certain amount of interior designs. If I remember well, at some point we had to do a selection process. How is that? Talk us through that. What kind of happens?
Yeah, I mean, as Juan said, we were working basically completely in isolation. For better or for worse, that was the nature of the situation. And then I remember at some stages, at one stage in particular, we were asked to kind of rapidly build some 3D models that I think we hadn't really expected we were going to do. So everyone was sort of scrambling in a nice way to build these models. And then we started to meld those interiors and exteriors together, right? So I was working with Nedzad on fitting that interior inside the exterior. And then, all of a sudden we were in a VR review with Murray Callum in the States and all the other design chiefs. And along with the kind of public polls, there were these internal selections of what we were going to do. And that was super interesting, to be not only handing your work over to Twitter, but also, okay, here's the project in a very rough status to the design VP, and watching this kind of unfold live in virtual reality. Publicly, right, to the world. It was not something that we did in advance, but something that was done live to the world. So that was super interesting.
This process was pretty new for us, and with that newness comes a certain amount of uncomfortableness. And there were certainly moments that I thought, I hope, we are on the right track, but is this giving us enough? Let's say, base or certainty or strong enough concept to move ahead to the next stage. But with the confidence that I could have in my own teams, I think they can make almost anything look really good. So in the end, every time it was a little bit of a peak of uncertainty and a little bit of angst, and then it goes down again and we feel good. And you know, and even that is actually a pretty normal process in the way that we design cars. So it was definitely okay to be disruptive in this way. In this process, we used the new technology like VR goggles, like live streaming events that made it really public. You had to trust the technology in order to make it. And again, that comes with a huge amount of stress, like, you know, 15 minutes before you go live, all the little things have to work the way that they're supposed to work. And the connection should be there. But we've had very good experiences, and it really made me trusting the technology even more moving forward. So this project was the first one that was digital only. So with digital only, I mean truly digital only. Until this car arrived right here in this showroom, finished, none of my design team members ever touched the physical property. So again, that was a bit of a risk that we took, but a calculated risk at the same time, because we obviously know what we're doing, but doing that with designers working around in different countries, and the CAD designers working in different countries, and doing these reviews daily without ever being in one room and standing around an object was new. But once the car was starting to build, and we built that in an absolute record time. It was built in about 7 to 8 weeks. And once it arrived here in the truck, I think we all had a really great relief, and it looked so much better than we thought it was going to be. The liberty that you could take to design this car for the virtual world only. The final design that we worked on needed a bit of tuning here and there, and one of the surprises that we had was actually was too wide, and it wasn't too wide for the virtual world. It was simply too wide to put in a transportation truck to be physically here. So we adapted that to the maximum width that we could do that, which is still largely enough. And in the end, like we do it on an everyday basis, these constraints coming in, and it actually made the product better in the end. So we're really proud of that end result. Now we've done the digital launch. What are the next steps for this project? Because we're not going to stop here. It's going to be a continuous process moving forward. We're going to go, as soon as the pandemic is permitting us, we're going on a road trip with the car. We're going to give the European public a glimpse of what the car really feels like in reality. We're also going to drop the car soon into a game, so it will be on your PlayStation or Xbox coming to you soon. So there's still plenty to come for P1.
That was such an amazing film. Thank you so much to the team, Fordzilla. It was really cool, I think, to see the process of how the car was created from, you know, the Twitter poll all the way through, and to see how the team adapted to remote working. Really, really interesting. So now I'm delighted to be joined by the team behind the P1. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Hi, Mike.
Look at that. How lucky we are to have you all here. I'm not going to ask where everyone's beaming in from, because that will take a lot of time. But thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
So the P1, just to congratulate you guys, what a fantastic project. let's start with you, Amko, if that's okay. And let's go right back to the start. Perhaps you can talk about the brief and explain the main purpose of embarking on such a project.
Yeah, I think thanks, Michael. It's a good question. Like the film was explaining before, it started off with creating actually a team Fordzilla esports team. But even before that, we did quite some work where we looked into what is the newer generation of people interested in, because we're designing for people and we're interested in them. So we looked into Gen Z. We looked into how do they spend their time, what are the activities, and we found out a couple of things, like Gen Z, 50% of Gen Zers are doing computer games, and more important is it's equally girls and boys, or men and women, and that was a good one. And then the second one was we found out that Ford is such an exciting brand to race with. We have obviously a long Ford performance history, but and we are constantly active in the performance sector, but in the virtual world, we're one of the most chosen cars in the world, and we didn't quite know a lot about them. So we said these things combined, let's just move ahead and build the brand in the digital world, which is something different than just draw a race car and you drop it in a game. We're on a journey here that is much more extensive than that.
Yeah, absolutely. It must have been a tricky one. I guess, Nuala, you could kind of chime in there if you like. Is she here? I think we've lost it. No worries. Let's go to Boris. Perhaps you oversaw the whole process. So there must have been some really unusual things that you saw. Can you share any insights to us?
Yeah, Mike. Hey, thank you so much for having us here today. Yes, I think everything that we have been throughout the project has been actually very unusual, and it has been really challenging. And one of the things what I can recall is we didn't really know what kind of car, what kind of exterior or interior themes we are going to end up until sometimes around middle of August. So we couldn't really start to bring these two themes together before around September time last year. And all the time after that has been just such an incredibly intensive time of 3 months of basically designing the car in the same time, while we have been already building some parts down in Italy, and we still have been, building the CAD model and the data which we were basically on daily basis sending up and down between us and Italian builders. Now we sort of ended up living for quite a while, for several weeks, in that world, living in our homes all around Europe, but also living in a WebExes, and sometimes living, switching between these two worlds, it could become really confusing. And I don't know if Nuala is online, but I think she had some really funny experience on this. Do we have her online or not, Mike?
I don't think so. I think she's disappeared.
So I will just follow up on that. I mean, I've got once at 2 o'clock in night text message from her saying, Boris, can you forward me a WebEx notice, because I got completely kicked out of the WebEx. And she basically has been, since she has been working and living from the same room, she has been dreaming about being on the WebEx non-stop and basically waking up and trying to reach out to a couple of us on the team and asking for the connection. So she was really worried that she was missing out on something. So yeah, it's one of the funny experiences which we have been through.
I think Nuala's just joined us. Can you hear us, Nuala?
Yeah.
Are you there?
Hi everyone. Sorry about that. I had some technical issues, which I think we've all become experts in technology because of the global pandemic and remote working. But yeah, I mean, I think the whole experience has, I mean, digitally transformed all companies. I think luckily for Ford, we've been working globally for many years, and we've got sites all over the world, so we're always using digital tools. But yeah, and I think that what Boris was mentioning was, you know, a lot of us are working at home, and it's really hard to, like, you know, basically you work and you sleep in the same location. So yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night thinking I was dropped out of a WebEx, and I was like, oh, I should be back in this WebEx. And so I texted Boris at 2 a.m. being like, oh my goodness, I've dropped out of the WebEx. And he was like, no, it's 2 a.m. Like, what's wrong? So I think with the intensity of projects and the intensity of the pandemic, many people would experience something similar where we were all a little bit on edge, but this project was the best experience I could think of for working remotely and really connecting with people in much more deeper and meaningful ways. So I'm really grateful to have been working on it in such a crazy time in the world.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, it's incredibly commendable that you guys managed to pull this off in such a short space of time as well. Perhaps we can talk a little bit about that in a bit more detail. Were there specific time constraints for this, Amko? Did you have in mind that you really needed to get this out for a specific deadline, or were you just working very fast? Is that the nature of working remotely?
I think it's a little bit of all. We knew we wanted to be done relatively fast. The original plan was to do to be present at an event somewhere in August last year, but due to the pandemic, we weren't able to do that because that event was canceled. But that was the original timeline, so we had to be extremely quick, and nothing was going to stop us to meet that timeline. That's the beauty about, I think, this creative job that we're in, is that you know, if you leave us alone, we'll continue another year or two or three before we freeze a design, because we always think we can do it better. We're very critical to ourselves, and we want to get the best design. But then the timelines are really the only limit that was here. So getting that out then later by the end of last year for the virtual reveal that you guys saw in the movie was really the goal.
Yep, fantastic. Guys, we're having quite a few questions come in through the audience, which is great. Please, everyone in the audience, do feel free to type in your questions in the chat box, and I'll try and get through them. There's been a few already that are centered around the use of, or perhaps the involvement of the public and the gaming community. So perhaps I could come to team captain Jose, if that's okay. You know, you've been in a sim racing world for a long time, Jose, and you've probably seen a lot of concept cars dropped by car brands. How do you think the community has reacted to this project from Ford, and how do you think that influence from the community was really important?
Yeah, I'm 12 years into the gaming and sim racing community, and we are used to see a lot of concept cars in game, but usually we don't know too much about the concept car, and mostly 2 days after the presentation, they did do a big with the presentation, but it's forgotten very fast. Maybe 2 or 3 days being using the car, the people in the game is forgotten. This case, in my opinion, and with a lot of drivers and sim racers I have been talking, this is very special because we could take the decision in what we wanted, and after 1 year from the first information, we keep talking about the car like we are doing today. So I think the community is very excited, and I think now we just really want to drive it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. Emmanuel, perhaps you want to jump in here and talk a little bit about why you chose to go with Twitter and the polls.
Hi, thanks, Mike. Well, that was really important, and I think a reason of the success, because basically we have an audience somewhere. We had a project. We needed to connect the two, and we had a few channels to do that. So we needed to pick the right one, and we had several meetings, with Amko, Boris, our team captains, a lot of back and forth, and we came down to the conclusion that Twitter polls was probably the best way, because we didn't want to give a wild card, to everyone. We wanted their contribution, but it had to be in a certain, controlled environment. So Twitter polls allowed us to do that, suggest key features of the car, and let the community decide which one they wanted to go for. And the success was overwhelming. Our internal target was getting 5,000 votes on each poll, and this is not a target that we set up low on purpose. This was set up after various conversations with Twitter. When we pushed the first poll, which was a year and a week ago, we got to 5,000 votes in 20 minutes. Wow. And yeah, the duration of the polls was going to be 24 hours. And we stuck to that, and we ended up with something between 25,000 and 30,000 for each of the attributes. So clearly that was the right way to do it, and we had a lot of engagement, comments, on each post. So we were not sure it was the right way, but in hindsight, I'm convinced that we couldn't have done it better.
Yeah, absolutely, fantastic. I think it's such an interesting and cool way to speak to your customers and the community as well, and get them really involved and feel like they're part of the project, which is really, really great. Let's get down into the nuts and bolts of the P1. Perhaps I can come to you first, Arturo, and ask you what your favorite parts, and also what the main challenges you came across when developing the exterior.
Yeah, well, main challenges. I think basically everything during this pandemic was challenging, but I think probably the main challenge is that I had to work always remotely. And to this day, I don't know in person. I don't know Boris, and I don't know Jens Fader, the modeler I was working with, who could not be with us. But that was probably the most challenging part. That all the reviews and everything had to be through WebEx. But at the same time, it was a lot of fun, and a lot of learning and self-learning, and we managed to adapt to it, and we made it happen. So yeah,
great. Robert and Suzanne as well, perhaps I can come to you guys, ask you about your favorite parts of the interior, and perhaps maybe you can talk through some of the key parts of the interior for us.
Sure, of course. I think for me, the key parts of the interior are, for example, the UTREF counter. So you have to imagine my idea was basically how would the interior look like without the game's UI. So my idea was if the pro gamer would switch off the game's UI, could he still drive the car really fast and win races? And so the idea was, for example, building a huge rev counter which lets you shift perfectly. And also, for example, there's a flag repeater in the interior that reflects the track situation. So if there's a yellow flag with a spinning car on the track, it will be reflected inside the car. And yeah, these kind of things were really the focus to make it work without the game's UI. That was the basic idea for me.
And maybe adding to it from a color material story, we really wanted to embrace, you know, the blur between the digital and the physical world. So it was really important to us building this color material story that we really find a way to, you know, bring all these digital ideas and materials that you can see and find in a way where you can't touch them, you know, bring them and translate them to the physical world. So I think this was really an exciting way to really dig in, to do some research. We even looked at how filters are kind of, you know, create some very different sheens and reflections. And then, you know, bringing this not just to the interior, but also to the outside and having this seamless blend between inside and outside. So the color material story was really to support the overall experience and kind of underpinning it in the best way possible.
Yeah, for sure. And Susan, just want to come back as well. Does this kind of project really lend itself to breaking the boundaries and really uncovering stuff that you might not otherwise use when it comes to color and materials?
I think it definitely challenged the way we do things. You know, I think particularly in finding the right story, where we then started with the digital proposals first, you know, where we came across very nice proposals that we liked and they looked so beautiful on the digital side. So then challenging us to bring this to samples and to materials and to translate this, I think really made a step ahead. But also in the way we collaborated, I think, with the teams. So I think from the very first moment the color material team joined the rest of the team, we found ways through remote working by making decisions where we normally needed way much more time. So I think it was really interesting to push also the process and finding ways in collaborating and coming up with CMD proposals.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. Amko, I think it was mentioned in the film that the project was shown to Maury Callum, and you know, such an extremely inspirational designer who just announced his retirement back in January this year, and he's going to be replaced by Anthony Lowe in April, I believe. So can you just tell us, maybe share with us how Maury really reacted to seeing the project?
Well, one of the things that is exciting about this project is that we kept it a secret quite a long time. We definitely wanted to give it a chance and you know, new ways of working or new ways of doing things is risky. But as soon as we started with the Twitter polls, what Manu was referring to is we realized there's such a hunger where people want to be part of an adventure like this, and all these votes only came with half of sketches and one question, and you know, we had more interest in that than, you know, a regular reveal. So you realize that you're onto something. Now, obviously, Murray was very, very excited about it, but not only Murray. One of the first persons that was picking it up was actually Jim Farley, our current CEO. He is totally committed to build up our brand in the digital world on a much more bigger scale. And this thing that we're doing here is all about fun, and it's got all the right Ford basics in, like honesty and performance, and while at the same time tapping into this whole new way of how to interact with the customer. So obviously these two guys were really good supporters along the way, together with some other executives that are just we're just really happy to see that we were getting into this space.
It's amazing to hear how the guys at the top kind of are really supportive. Is really nice to hear. We've had a couple of questions for you guys. One of them is quite specific, but I think it might be quite interesting to ask, because the P1 was delivered in the real world as well. So the question is, now that you have seen this design to scale, do you think you may feel unsatisfied with seeing some other designs only in 1 to 25 models? Is there a way to make the real scale models more cost efficient? I don't know who wants to go for that, but yeah, perhaps you can weigh in, Amko.
What's the short version of that question?
So basically, I think the question is, sometimes with concepts that we don't see them in a full scale. We see them a lot smaller. But with making this virtual car and actually having the full scale model produced as well, do you think there's a way that we can do that more with concepts? There's a way that we can actually see these full scales a bit more frequently?
Yeah, I think so, and I think one of the most important parts of what drives cost for these concepts is actually humans and handwork. So the more we're able to get to the next step in technology and being able to push the button and the moment we think we're satisfied, get it done. And this was a really good first step to go that way. And again, people may not believe it, but we didn't touch the model until it arrived in the studio. So that is helping a lot to reduce cost and to be more efficient, more agile.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. Guys, we are pretty much out of time. But just before we go, I believe we have a special treat for the audience. We're going to show some exclusive images that have never been seen before. Can we pull those up, if that's okay? Brilliant. So, Boris, Amko, could you talk us through these images?
Please, Boris, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. It's interesting to look at it because the other car, which is next to the white one, it's literally the same car as the original one, only with removed exterior panels. And it just shows to how much depth we have went when we were designing the original car. And we just thought, we bring it up today for this event to show some other positioning of this vehicle, which would take us into another space as a brand, where we still feel that we are very authentic in sort of extreme outdoor adventures. And obviously, it would probably be suitable for a very different type of game in a gaming world. So, it's just one example of how much we are inspired by this gaming environment and eventually, whether we will do something with it or not, this will be, we will leave it up to the gamers. And Jose is here with us, so maybe he sees it the first time today as well. So maybe, Jose, you have some opinion about this car. What do you think?
Obviously, it's not a racetrack car, as we can see, but I think it's a really nice design for arcade games, where we can use the cars with turbo boost, jumping, doing tricks and flips. And obviously, I think it's a perfect car to see into Rocket League, where you can do like soccer or football with a car. So I think this is the perfect car for that.
Jose, I was thinking exactly the same thing. So perhaps me and you can have a go in it on Rocket League at some point. I'm sure you'll beat me, though.
Of course. Of course. Come
So,
to me.
Jose, do we have a Team Fordzilla championship in Rocket League already or not?
Not yet. Rocket League is
opportunity.
Yeah, it is. It is. We are just focused on sim racing, because sim racing is a good point to enter into esports, because it's not as massive as Rocket League, and to find very good people to be professional in Rocket League is so much more difficult, and there are teams with much more years of experience there, and it's not my world at the moment. I can try it, but at the moment we are super focused on the properly sim racing, but happy to jump on Rocket League soon.
Yeah, maybe at some point. That would be awesome. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure for me to speak to you. Thank you so much for coming and joining me on the main stage. But right now, as I speak, the wider team at Fordzilla are going to head to the suite area for an after party. So please do go and join them. It's a chance for you to ask more questions and speak to the team directly. So go and have some fun. Thank you guys again. Here on the main stage, we're going to have a short break before the next panel session with Myotech, which will be exploring new lighting innovations. See you shortly.
Thanks, Michael.